God has great things for your life. And he wants you to be led by the Spirit. And you can count on this. To be led by the Spirit is to be led into a direct battle with your giants. Like I said, it could be a sin problem. It could be pornography. It could be sexual immorality. It could be challenges of sexuality. It could be alcohol. It could be greed. You know, some of these things that we don't really consider to be quote unquote big sins, like pride. And pride, as you probably know, goes before destruction. That's what the Word of God says. Jealousy, anger, self-pity, insecurities. You know, I even talked about in my sermon my own giant that I dealt with for years about fear and how do you overcome that. And I talked about that. And see, whatever you call it, whatever that name is going to cause you to walk less than God called you to walk. Your gait won't be strength. It won't be strong, rather. Your spirit won't be erect. Your body might be erect, but in the behind those eyes, behind that heart, is a weakness, and the devil wants to exploit it. It's going to hinder your progress with God, and most importantly, it's going to cause you to miss out on God's best for your life. And if you miss out on God's best, then guess what? Some of the people that are close to you are going to miss out because you've been put in their lives to be a source of inspiration, motivation, and support. And so the first step to victory is dealing with your perspective. And remember, I'm talking about spiritual perspective, how you see things. Because the spiritual perspective, saints of God, is the fuel, just like the fuel in your automobile. It is the fuel that motivates your faith and motivates your desire to give God the glory. And so if you're not looking with the eyes of faith, having a spiritual perspective, you'll be just like these soldiers and King Saul. They were running from the giant, but David saw the giant differently. And that's what I'm hoping that I'll be successful in giving you insight on today. It's how you see things that happen in your lives and how you see things happening to your life. And it's not so much what happens as much as it is how you see it. Remember how at the end of Joshua's life, he said, you find that in the 50th chapter somewhere in the book of Genesis, he said, you meant it for evil. He was talking to all of his brothers that threw him in the pit, of which he loved. He loved them all. But they were all on pins and needles because they didn't know when that giant of anger and fear and maybe hostility would come out of this man. But I believe this man Joseph said, I may have said Joshua, I meant to say Joseph. He said, you meant it for evil. You had ill intent for me. That was your motivation. And I'm making it very clear, I knew what you were about, but God had a different plan. God meant what you meant for evil for good. And note what he said. I wish I had a little more time to spend on that, but the Lord just dropped that in my spirit. He said, so that many could be saved. So there's a motivation behind God's allowance of you to go through difficulty and trial, because there's a salvation process, a deliverance process that's beyond just you, but to people that are important to you. They need to see that nothing's too hard for God, and you have to go through these difficult trials, which are called giants, to be released from your spirit, to be released from your emotional realm, so that you can give God the glory. And so I want you to see that what is key to delivering you from these giants is your foundation. What is the foundation for your faith? Because your foundation for your faith must be rooted in a strong understanding, and this is where I'm going to spend quite a bit of time on here in a moment, on covenant. A strong understanding, not just with the head, not just intellectually, that's important, but spiritually. Covenant believers are all interwoven throughout the Older and the Newer Testament. For those of you who are followers of me, you probably know I often say Older and Newer Testament intentionally because old implies outdated. Oh no, the Old Testament or the Older Testament is talked about in the New, and the New reflects back to the Old. And so it's all good. And what you find in the Older Testament is the beginning of these covenants. Covenant means a promise. Covenant means a testament. And most importantly, covenant means a covering. A covering. It's God's covering on your life.